Have you ever had to just bite your tongue? Not once, but over and over again. You stomach the little digs, the compliments that are actually insults, and the condescending remarks, all while keeping your eyes on the prize. You tell yourself it doesn't matter, that their opinions are just background noise while you're busy building a cathedral. But let's be honest, that noise is distracting. It's draining. And a small part of you, deep down, yearns for the day the buzzing finally stops, and the only thing left is the undeniable, resounding echo of your own success. This is a story about that day. It's about the quiet dignity of hard work and the loud, deafening silence that comes with sweet, sweet vindication. Hook. This is a family who thought I was an uneducated nobody. For months, they mocked me, dismissed my dreams, and questioned my intelligence with thinly veiled jokes and condescending smiles. To them, I wasn't a person. I was a stereotype they could comfortably look down on. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly imagine as they sat in their stiff, uncomfortable chairs at the university graduation, is that they were there to witness the triumph of their son's girlfriend, the law school valedictorian. And I was about to give the speech that would leave them utterly and completely speechless. Let me take you back to how it all began. Section 1, the beginning of the end. Like a lot of stories, this one started with love. Or at least, what I thought was love. His name was Liam, and for a while, he was the calm in my storm. We had a classic, cliché library meet cute. I was a second-year law student, buried under a mountain of textbooks, hair in a messy bun, and he was a business school grad visiting for a networking event. He said he was drawn to the sheer intensity coming from my little corner of the library. Liam was charming, handsome, and seemed genuinely progressive. He actually listened when I talked about my passion for justice and my dream of being a civil rights attorney. In his words, I was a force of nature. He celebrated my small wins, acing a mock trial, landing a spot on the law review, with an enthusiasm that made me feel seen. For a year and a half, our relationship was a sanctuary. I was Amara Adebayo, a first-generation law student on a full ride, but with Liam, I could just be Amara. The first mention of his family, the Harrisons, was casual enough. My parents are having their anniversary dinner next month, he said, wrapping his arms around my waist. I want you to be there. I've told them so much about you. A knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. This wasn't a test of my intellect, it was a test I had no textbook for. Meeting the parents is a rite of passage, but for a black woman about to meet a wealthy, traditional, white family, it carries a certain unspoken weight. It feels like an audition you never asked for. I tried to gently back out. Are you sure, Liam? My thesis is killing me. And you said your family is, kinda formal. He just smiled. Don't be silly. They're just old-fashioned. A little stuck in their ways. They'll love you once they get to know you. They'll love you once they get to know you. The phrase just hung there. It never occurred to him that they were the ones I might not accept. But I loved him, so I agreed. I bought a new dress, elegant, conservative, nothing too much. I prepped my talking points like I was prepping for a trial, arming myself with poise and grace. I was ready to present the case for my own worthiness. The Harrisons lived in a sprawling house in the city's most exclusive suburb. It was less a home and more a statement on generational wealth. Liam's father, Richard, greeted me with a bone-crushing handshake, his smile never quite reaching his cold, appraising eyes. He sized me up in a second, and I felt like a liability on his personal balance sheet. The mother, Eleanor, was a master of the sweet-sounding, venomous compliment. Amara, what a pleasure, she cooed. Liam told us you're very ambitious. It's wonderful you're so focused on a career. The way she said ambitious, you'd think it was a curious, almost unladylike, quality. Dinner was a masterclass in subtle digs. So, Amara, Richard began, swirling his wine. Adebayo. That's Nigerian, right? It is, I said calmly. My parents moved to the US before I was born. Fascinating, he said. They must be proud. Getting into a top law school is no small feat, especially with the scholarships they have these days. A wonderful opportunity. And there it was. The first jab. The immediate assumption that my presence at a top school wasn't just about merit, but an opportunity, a polite word for affirmative action. He was reducing my years of all-nighters and my top percentile LSAT score to a demographic checkbox. Liam shifted uncomfortably beside me but said nothing, just squeezed my hand under the table. So, I let it go. I smiled my tight, polite, I'm wearing a mask, smile. I was very fortunate to receive the Chancellor's scholarship, I said, my voice even. It's awarded for academic merit. Eleanor jumped in. Oh, of course, dear. It's just so wonderful that schools are making an effort to be inclusive. The rest of the dinner was more of the same. When I mentioned my focus on civil rights law, Richard waved a dismissive hand. Ah, the noble, bleeding heart stuff. No money in that. The real game is corporate law. Mergers and acquisitions. Liam understands that. Practicality is a virtue. I left their house that night feeling deeply uneasy. Liam, ever the optimist, was clueless. See? That wasn't so bad, he said on the drive home. I think they really liked you. I looked at his happy face and felt a chasm opening between us. He hadn't heard what I heard. He saw a polite dinner. I'd just survived my first interrogation. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, it wouldn't be my last. Section 2, The Rising Tide of Mockery. The months that followed felt like a slow, escalating psychological war, fought with smiles and polite questions. My relationship with Liam was now shadowed by his family. Every brunch, holiday, or weekend visit was another chance for them to chip away at me, to reinforce their story that I didn't belong. The next major incident was at a 4th of July barbecue at their country club. Richard, holding court by the grill, called me over with a loud laugh. Amara. Come here. This is Liam's girlfriend, the legal eagle. His buddies, all men of his age and status, turned to stare. I felt like an exhibit at the zoo. Amara, we were just having a debate, Richard said, a sly glint in his eye. Maybe you can settle it. Explain the concept of residential ipsa loquitur. You must have covered that in your first week. It was a test, as blatant as it was insulting. He was treating me like a trained SEAL, quizzing me on a basic legal principle. Liam was across the pool, oblivious. I took a deep breath and calmly defined the doctrine, the thing speaks for itself. I even gave a textbook example. Richard looked mildly impressed, then quickly pivoted. Right. Basic stuff. But what about the real world? Say one of my companies is facing a class action lawsuit. What's my first move to limit liability? He wasn't asking for my opinion. He was asserting his dominance. Well, I began, my voice steady, my expertise is in protecting the rights of people harmed by faulty products, not helping corporations evade responsibility. An awkward silence fell over the group. Richard's smile tightened. Right, he said curtly. The noble stuff. He turned his back on me, dismissing me completely. My heart was pounding with fury. I found Liam and told him what happened. He just frowned. Dad's just competitive, Amara. It's how he shows interest. He was probably just trying to relate to you. Relate to me? Liam, he was trying to humiliate me. I think you're overreacting, he said. Just let it go. And that was the problem. It was never worth the fight to him. My feelings were always second to keeping the peace. Every time I tried to explain how their words made me feel, he'd make an excuse. That's just how my mom is. You're being too sensitive. He was translating their prejudice into a language he could accept, one that absolved him of having to defend me. Section 3, The Wounding Joke. The lowest point came during the Christmas holidays. The entire Harrison clan was there, a whole gaggle of people with the same air of casual entitlement. I was trying to make myself as small as possible when Liam's aunt, Carol, cornered me by the fireplace. "Amara, dear," she said, loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I was just saying how wonderful it is that you've done so well for yourself. It's just amazing what's possible now." I braced myself. "My daughter's friend applied to your law school," she went on. "Top of her class, perfect scores, legacies, and she was waitlisted. It's just so competitive. You are so lucky they have those diversity programs now. It must have been a huge help getting your foot in the door." It was a direct hit. In one sentence, she called me lucky, not brilliant. She implied I'd stolen a spot from a more deserving white candidate. She reduced my entire life's work to a box I ticked on an application. The family members listening in nodded, their faces a mix of pity and smug agreement. My face burned. I looked for Liam. He was across the room, laughing with his father, completely oblivious. I was utterly alone. In my last semester, I threw myself into my work. The library was my refuge. Every achievement felt like another brick in the fortress I was building around myself. I became editor-in-chief of the Law Review. I led our team to victory in the National Moot Court competition. I even co-authored a paper that was accepted by a major legal journal. I was basically a legal superhero, and each win was a silent rebuttal to the Harrisons. Liam saw my success, but he saw it his way. "See? You're proving them wrong," he'd say, as if I were doing it for them. Then I told him I'd received a prestigious fellowship to work for a civil rights organization. It was my dream job. Liam's reaction was lukewarm. "A fellowship? That's great, Amara. But does it pay well?" A few days later, we had dinner with his parents. Liam, against my wishes, announced my fellowship. Richard barely looked up from his steak. "A non-profit, he grunted. "All that brainpower and education, and you're going to work for pennies. What a waste." Eleanor gave me her look of pained sympathy. "That's a very noble thought, dear. But nobility doesn't pay the mortgage. You and Liam need to be building a future." My life's calling was an inconvenience to their vision of a power couple. I didn't argue. I just sat there, smiling politely, while my resolve hardened into diamond. I would stop trying to convince them. I would let my achievements speak for themselves. The final piece fell into place a month before graduation. The dean called me to his office to tell me I was the class valedictorian. I would be giving the keynote address at commencement. When I told Liam, he was genuinely thrilled. "Valedictorian. Amara, that's incredible. Oh, my family has to be there. They have to see this." His excitement was so pure that I let myself hope. Maybe this would finally be the thing that forced them to see me. So, Liam invited them. He put the call on speaker. "Great news. Amara's not just graduating, she's speaking at the ceremony." There was a pause. Then, Eleanor's voice, cool and unimpressed. "Oh. That's nice, dear. What is she speaking about? Every department has student speakers, don't they?" Richard cut in. "I hope it's not too long. These things drag on." Liam's face fell. He hung up and turned to me, apologetic. "I'm sorry," he said. They don't get it." "Oh, but I did. I got it perfectly. They were coming to endure the ceremony, not celebrate me. They had no idea what valedictorian meant. The dramatic irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. They were walking into a play they had completely misread, about to be cast as the stunned, silent audience. And I was finally ready for the curtain to rise. Section 5, the climax, the speech that silenced a family. Graduation day was bright and clear. My apartment was filled with my family's joyful chaos. My parents, their eyes shining with a pride so profound it was practically glowing, helped me with my gown. Their belief in me was the armor I wore under my regalia. When Liam arrived, he brought the dark cloud of his family with him. "They're saving us seats," he said nervously. "Mom's already complaining about the parking." We found the Harrisons in the family section. Richard, Eleanor, and their daughter Chloe, looking stiff and bored. "Amara, congratulations," Eleanor said, her voice completely flat. Richard just grunted a, "good for you," and started sighing at the length of the program. They were so confident in their dismissiveness, so utterly unprepared. I joined the procession of graduates. As we marched into the hall, I caught a glimpse of them looking small and insignificant in the vast crowd. The ceremony went on. Finally, the dean of the law school approached the podium. Each year, he began, the faculty bestows its highest honor upon one graduating student who has demonstrated unparalleled intellectual achievement, exceptional leadership, and a profound commitment to justice. This year's valedictorian has not just met these criteria, she has shattered every record. I saw Richard lean over to Eleanor, probably making some cynical comment. The dean continued, his voice swelling. "This student graduates with the highest GPA in the modern history of this institution. She served as editor-in-chief of the Law Review. She led our national moot court team to its first-ever championship, where a federal appellate judge called her arguments a masterclass in legal reasoning. It is my honor to introduce our class of 2025 valedictorian." He paused. I looked right at the Harrisons. I saw Richard looking intrigued now, impressed by the list of accomplishments. He had a look on his face that said, "Now that's a student worth listening to." Amara Adebayo. The name hit them like a shockwave. I watched it in slow motion. Richard's jaw literally dropped. Eleanor's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with a horror that was almost funny. Chloe finally looked up from her phone, her face a perfect picture of stunned confusion. They looked from me, to their programs, and back to me, unable to process that the woman they dismissed as a charity case was the record-shattering genius the dean just described. A wave of thunderous applause filled the hall as I walked to the podium. I felt a profound calm. I looked out and let my eyes rest for a moment on the three frozen figures of the Harrison family. They were pale, their ignorance laid bare for everyone to see. They were speechless. And I hadn't even said a word yet. I began my speech, my voice clear and strong. "Thank you, Dean Martinez. To the faculty, my family, my fellow graduates, good morning. I thanked my parents, my professors, and then I got to the heart of it. We came here to learn the law," I said. "But what I hope we take from this place is not just how to practice law, but why we practice it. The law, in its purest form, is a promise of equality and protection. But historically, that promise hasn't been extended to everyone. For many, the law hasn't been a shield, but a sword. We sit here on the shoulders of giants, people like Thurgood Marshall and Constance Baker Motley, who used the law not for personal gain, but as a crowbar to pry open the doors of justice." I glanced at the Harrisons. They were paralyzed with shock. "Some will tell you success is the size of your office or your bank account," I continued, looking at my fellow graduates. "They will tell you noble ideals don't pay the bills. I urge you to reject that definition. True success isn't about meeting the low expectations others set for you, but exceeding the high ones you set for yourself. Our value is not determined by the shallow prejudice or willful ignorance of others. It is forged in the late nights in the library. It is proven by the quality of our work and the integrity of our character. So, to the class of 2025, be brilliant. Be compassionate. Be courageous. May your legacy be written not in stock options, but in the lives you change. Congratulations. The auditorium erupted in a roar. The entire graduating class was on its feet. The faculty was on its feet. And in the middle of it all, the Harrison family remained seated, silent, and utterly, devastatingly speechless. They had come to witness a boring ceremony. Instead, they witnessed their own public humbling. Section 6, The Silent Aftermath. After the ceremony, I was mobbed by well-wishers. Through the crowd, I saw Liam making his way toward me, his face a chaotic mix of pride, shock, and dawning horror. Amara, he breathed. You were. I had no idea. Valedictorian, highest GPA. I'm so proud of you. Thank you, Liam, I said calmly. His eyes darted nervously to where his family still sat, frozen in their seats. They're in shock, he stammered. We should go over there. I needed to see this through. Together, we walked over. As we approached, a bubble of silence formed around them. Eleanor, Richard, and Chloe looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in their eyes. The fear of being so completely, so publicly, wrong. That was, quite a speech, Amara, Richard managed to whisper. He couldn't even look at me. Eleanor just nodded, her jaw tight. All the polite masks were gone. There were no apologies. No congratulations. Just the thick, suffocating silence of their humiliation. My reality had obliterated their narrative. Then, my own family came over, a vibrant, joyous force. My father clapped Liam on the back, oblivious to the drama. Your girlfriend is a superstar, son. My mother hugged me again, whispering, I am so proud of the woman you are. The contrast was staggering, the unconditional love of my family versus the stunned, resentful silence of his. It was painfully clear I could only ever truly belong to one of them. Liam later told me the car ride home for his family was a masterwork of silent tension. Finally, Eleanor broke the silence, her voice trembling with rage. Well, how were we supposed to know? She never said anything. She let us believe she was just, ordinary. And that's when Liam finally snapped. Ordinary, he shot back, his voice shaking. She let us believe. Mom, we didn't believe because we didn't want to. We treated her like she was nothing. We mocked her, we made racist jokes. This isn't on her. This is on us. The argument, he said, was ugly and raw. By the time they got home, the family wasn't just silent, it was fractured. Section 7, The Resolution, A Choice of Self-Worth. The next day, Liam came to my apartment looking like he'd aged 5 years. He brought flowers, a pathetic cliché. Amara, he began, his voice cracking. I am so sorry. It was what I had wanted to hear for months, but now it felt hollow.